Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharini. You have seen the topic for discussion today. Knowledge is life, ignorance is death. I have copied the title from Swamiji's famous quote, strength is life, weakness is death. Strength comes only through knowledge. Ignorance is weakness. Weakness is suffering. There is no other suffering in the world. Essentially, we are, if you just see the two dimensions that we have, baser dimensions, lower dimensions, body and mind. Body doesn't suffer on its own. Even when there is a disease in the body, the suffering comes from mind only. Because mind is attached to the body, mind is focused on the body, mind is identified with the body, something happened with which it has identified, the suffering comes. So there is nothing like physical pain, it's only psychological. Pain is always psychological. Pain is always mind-born. So that happens because we don't know how to handle our thought or mind. The right kind of perception, right kind of understanding as to what life is, if we have, we can overcome from all kinds of suffering, all kinds of pain. Our philosophy is very clear that whoever has a mind will have some kind of suffering, because mind is basically made of pairs of opposites. That is its constitution. Sukhasyanantaram dukkham, dukkhasyanantaram sukham. Sukha dukkhaha manushyanam chakravat parivartataha. So both will come. As Swami says, happiness presents itself before man, wearing the crown of sorrow on its head. So whoever seeks pleasure here, they will have to experience pain as well. The source of pleasure is mind, and the source of pain also is the mind. So the ultimate goal here in our culture is to transcend the mind itself. If you want to make yourself free from suffering once for all, for good, then get rid of the mind. Then reach that no mind state. That is the highest state, that is the blessed state. When you touch consciousness or real being, which is by nature bliss. There is nothing, there is opposites are not there. The pain and pleasure, both are not there. It's beyond. It is bliss and bliss and bliss alone. It doesn't diminish with time. Time cannot act upon it. So that is our real state, that is our real being. And that we can experience only when we transcend the mind. And to transcend the mind, you have to become desireless. Mind is made up of ego, sense, or desire. But we don't come forward to make mind desireless, to annihilate mind through desirelessness, because we don't know what lies beyond the mind. That is the fear. We are not able to dissolve the mind because of this, dissolve the ego sense. Because that what lies beyond the mind cannot be perceived by the mind so easily. Mind cannot grasp the subtle. Mind is very gross compared to consciousness. It's too gross. That's why it creates fear. It projects as if it's a total annihilation. You're destroying yourself. No, it creates fear, and that's why we don't dare. So when you do sadhana a little, first, of course, you need to have a little faith in Aptavakya, whatever the Rishis say. Whatever the scriptures say, you need to believe in that, in the sayings of the scriptures, in the sayings of the people who have experienced the truth, and embark on the spiritual journey. As you progress on the journey, As the mind becomes purer and purer, as it becomes more and more sattvic, it will be able to pursue intuitively that state which is beyond itself. A gross mind cannot perceive the consciousness or that blessed state, how it would be. Even with the finest of the imagination, you cannot reach that blessed state. It has to be experienced, that's all. What is Ramana Maharshi's self-realization? What is Sri Ramakrishna's samadhi? What is Buddha's nirvana? Only they knew what it was. They had experienced it. They know what it is. How you and I can know that? Only when we get that experience, we will be able to know what their experience was. Not now, but we want to conceive that experience through our intellect. Intellect is a puny instrument. It can't reach there. That blessed state only you have to experience, but they have clearly told, the experience that we have got, that experience that I have got, you also can get. This is the way. This is the path. So path is open for us also. We have to walk on the path and reach that blessed state. So the root cause of all suffering is ignorance. That's what Vedanta says. There is no other cause of suffering. There is only one single cause of suffering. That is ignorance. Ignorance about our own true nature. See, we have come here as human beings. Animals, they helplessly suffer. Animals cannot get out of the suffering consciously. They can't make any exertion there. There is no scope. If we as human beings also suffer repeatedly and helplessly, we are no better than animals. So as human beings, whenever pain comes to us in our lives, we need to investigate into that. What is the nature of pain? What is that experiences pain in my being? Why should I experience this pain? Can't I get rid of it? Can't I overcome it? What is the way out? Where you just see the society, millions and millions of people. Helpless suffering. But you are not helpless like animal. That is the thing, beauty of human life. You can come out of it. The path is open for you. No. That is our choice. When you make such a choice and then you put the blame on God, why God make us suffer? He doesn't make us suffer. We choose to suffer, that's why we suffer. He doesn't make us suffer. My child, here is the way out. Why don't you come for here? Is the problem. What is knowledge? Knowledge is life, ignorance is death. Then what is knowledge? In the Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, we have studied that they talk about two kinds of knowledge or education. Paravidya, Aparavidya. What is Aparavidya? Everything. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda. Chandas, Niruktam, Shiksha, Kalpa. Everything, Vedas and Upangas, Upavedas, everything actually they put in Aparavidya. Study of Rigveda, study of Yajurveda also is Aparavidya. And what is Para? Tatra Para. Tadaksharam adhigamyate. Yaya tadaksharam adhigamyate. Aksharam. Kshara means that is which gets destroyed. That is which is destructible is kshara. Akshara means that is which is indestructible. It doesn't diminish with time. It doesn't change with time. That is akshara. That is Brahman. That is consciousness. Ya tadaksharam adhigamyate. That is para. That is real knowledge by which you gain that akshara. You gain that Brahman. For that, what you need to do? Only sadhana. Not reading scriptures also. You need to go beyond that. Maybe for intellectual clarity, you may have to read scriptures in the beginning. But if you just say that only by reading scriptures, I will get enlightenment, no. By becoming a scholar, you will never get enlightenment. You will become a great scholar. People will praise you for your scholarship. But your experience of life will remain the same because still you are stuck at the level of intellect. So, scholarship also, for such some intellectual knowledge that gives you some joy, but not the ultimate truth. Once you have understood the path, just plunge into spiritual practice, sadhana. Sooner the better. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, by squeezing the almanac, you don't get rain. Almanac only predicts rain. Squeezing the almanac, you don't get rain. What he wants to say, by reading books, you will not gain knowledge. Because knowledge is here. You need to study this book in toto. What it means to study this book? You have to plunge deep into your own self. Who am I? What am I? What is my true nature? From where this I comes? Am I just the body? Am I just the mind? Or is there any other thing beyond these two dimensions? So for that, meditation, prayer, selflessness, repetition of God's name, self-inquiry, these are the ways, means which help you to reach the core of your own being, which is the truth. So, Paravidya is this. And also Sri Ramakrishna beautifully says, by saying Siddhi, 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 you won't get Siddhi. Practice is required. By repeating like parrot, Siddhi, 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 perfection, perfection, you will not attain perfection. Plunge into sadhana, plunge into spiritual practice. And get the truth by experience. Then all your doubts will get dispelled once you get to the truth. Once you know it by experience, the mystery of the universe is solved for you. Thereafter, you have attained as total knowledge, no suffering will ever come to you. Yam labdva cha param labham na manyate adhikam tataha. So you attain to that samam bonam of life. There is nothing more to be obtained, there is nothing more to be known. The ultimate thing to be known actually is known by you. The problem is not everybody is prepared for this kind of knowledge. That's why Swamiji in his lectures from Colombo to Almora, he talks about 4 kinds of help to the society. A very poor man is there, he is struggling to make both ends meet. Hand-to-mouth existence we call. If you talk philosophy to him, it's inhuman, right? He doesn't understand ABCD of philosophy. His struggle is still a basic struggle. How to keep the body alive, that is the struggle. 2 square meals per day. There are millions in this country who are struggling to make both ends meet. If he comes here for help, and if I give a talk on philosophy, and if I talk about self-inquiry to him, it doesn't make sense. He doesn't understand it. Because he's at that level. What kind of help you have to give? You give him a meal and satisfy his hunger. He'll be happy. But only for that day he will be happy. The next day, as body is there, hunger comes again and again will come. That's not the greatest help. So better than that is, if the individual, let us say, has become sick, and he is not in a position to earn money for himself, what you need to do is you have to help him regain his health. And once he regains health, he will procure things for himself or herself. There is a little better help. And better than this, actually, educate the individual. Don't give him fish, help him to catch fish. Educate him. Then he will be able to support himself. He or she will be able to stand on his or her own feet. There's a better kinds of help in giving knowledge, secular knowledge. He doesn't depend upon anybody else. For the basic necessities of life, the individual struggles himself or herself. But higher than the secular knowledge is, because this will only help you, to some extent. Today we all have the secular knowledge also. We all stand on our own feet. We earn our money. Basic necessities of life are fulfilled to a vast mass of population to a reasonable degree. So unless you cultivate, desire for luxuries, and that is a different thing, and you go for them, and so you want more money. Otherwise, as far as basic necessities of life are concerned, a huge percentage of population, for the first time in the history of independent India, a vast mass of population, we have brought them above poverty line. As far as basic necessities of life are concerned, There's no worry. They can now actually turn inward. They can investigate into the nature of existence. It is time now. We do that. So higher than this actual spiritual knowledge, because even if you have all the necessities of life fulfilled, let us say you have all the luxuries of the world, but still you won't be happy. We have the same mind, it's opposites. It brings as much pain as pleasure. Whatever may be your social position, whatever may be your state in terms of material welfare, all the best of the material things are available to you, but you can't escape from the psychological suffering. If only material things, wealth bring happiness to man, all the rich people must be super happy. They must be floating in joy. Is it the reality? No. They suffer as much as a poor man suffers. Suffering is the same. The external conditions, frills of life. Lifestyle is different, that's all. A little different kind of lifestyle they have. That's all. But the suffering is more or less the same. In that way, God has not done injustice to anybody. Rather, the poor man is more happy. You just see daily wage laborer, what a good sleep he gets. If you become educated, very poor quality sleep. You have so many desires, so many worries. You are so sensitive also. Somebody uses some abusive word, you suffer for a lifetime. An illiterate man, that next day he doesn't remember. Next day he doesn't remember. You ask him third day, what did I say day before yesterday to you? He'll scratch his head. Right? You are an educated man, you remember it for life and you suffer it. What use this education in that way? You become so sensitive now. Your nerves have become so sensitive. Suffering also has increased proportionately as you have become educated. And money also, same thing. An attachment, there will be so many people who will be, longing for that money. Friends, relatives. And you actually develop new special attachment for the wealth that you possess now. But people are expecting, they covet that. And if you don't give, they become annoyed with you. So much of suffering it brings wealth, beyond a measure. Unless you are very charitable, you are very concerned about others' welfare, and you distribute money, you freely actually donate it, and earn good name, that gives you some joy. But not many have that kind of heart. Okay, I have earned this with my effort, and I must enjoy it all. If I don't enjoy it, my children, or my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren should enjoy. But the nature won't allow. Nature is too intelligent. And nature will force you to part with the things that you accumulate beyond what you need. But you want to hold on to that. But nature is forcing pain, suffering. So much of suffering it brings, but still you can't. You can't develop detachment, you can't part with what you have earned, because I have earned, so I must enjoy. But how much you can enjoy? There is a limit to that. So the highest help that you can give to an individual is the spiritual knowledge. So even if you are well positioned in society, you can't escape from old age, you can't escape from disease, you can't escape from death, the ultimate source of fear in the world. The corona, ultimate source of fear, death. How much ever Vedanta lecture you might hear, when really Yama comes in front of people are trembling. All this Vedanta knowledge goes fluck, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say. That parrot, it would say Rama, Rama, Rama. When cat catches its throat, a different sound will come. Right? Normal Rama has disappeared. Our condition is also more or less the same. I've seen people, so much of philosophy and spirituality they have heard. You are deathless, you are immortal, you are essentially soul, you are essentially consciousness. Bodies come and go. So many times they have heard. But now, this pandemic creates such fear in them. Some of them are frozen with fear. I said that it's not worth living with this kind of fear. It's not that life-threatening. For some people, imagination runs riot, that is the problem. They're not extra cautious, they're over cautious. Wherever you may go, Yama will catch you. One day we have to die. Corona or no corona. Okay? You sure, right? Whether it is there or not there, one day you will leave the world, you will have to leave the world. Then why don't you prepare yourself for that ultimate eventuality? We can prepare ourselves. So this spiritual knowledge which helps us to go beyond these fundamental limitations of life, namely old age, disease and death, is a true knowledge, which helps us to go beyond suffering forever, once for all, for good. That is real knowledge, yes. You won't come into this world of suffering again. You are liberated once for all. This way actually Buddha did not feel comfortable, inheriting throne from his father. They are fundamental things. Pain is intrinsic to life, he could sense. But we consider ourselves educated people. Why the same kind of understanding doesn't dawn on us? It's a mystery for me. Right? We're also educated. Buddha also had that kind of education, whatever the education that was available that day, his father had given, provided to him. Look around and just reflect on the nature of life. Suffering is intrinsic to life. Nobody can escape from old age, suffering that comes through old age. Nobody can escape suffering that comes from disease. And nobody can become free from fear that comes through death. When that is the nature of existence, how can I escape from these sources of suffering? You need to reflect. You're really educated. And that is real knowledge which helps us to go beyond this suffering that is intrinsic to life. And Swamiji beautifully puts it, wherever there is life, there is a death. So if you want to overcome death, you must overcome life itself. That means you must go beyond life itself. This is a cycle. Nothing cyclical can actually make you peaceful or happy. Come out of this cycle. Only in this country, in this culture, people thought up to this extent. And they had exerted their utmost to come out of this cycle. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanam avritta chakshuhu amrutatvam icchan. Desiring immortality, the brave souls, they turn inward. Men and women of wisdom. Kaschid dhiraha, Upanishad says, is not for weaklings. Nayam atma balahinena labhyaha. This Atman, this spirit, this consciousness cannot be obtained by weak people. Weak, I don't mean a physical weakness. If you are weak intellectually, if you are not strong-willed, if you don't have the strength of renunciation, you will not get the supreme truth. You need to have the strength of renunciation. Kaschid dhiraha. Upanishad praises such heroes who really want spiritual knowledge, who wants to get out of this cycle of samsara. That is actually the real ambition that should be. So this spiritual knowledge is the highest knowledge, which helps you to come out of suffering once for all. This samsara, this world is a kind of quagmire. Once you get stuck in the mire, it's not easy to extricate yourself from that. We all feel it, we all understand that. We understand that Lord himself said, the creator of the world himself said, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanu darsanam. Then why did he create life like this? He himself is saying, I have created like this. Janma mrityu jara vyadi. You must see dukkha here. You must see dosha. This has dosha, defect. And don't get tempted by my world. This is all my maya. Lord said, Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya. The Creator himself is telling, I have not created this creation to entertain you, my child. This is a kind of trap. Don't fall into the trap. That's why last class we discussed. God has made this machine and also He has given the manual. And He asks us to read the manual before you operate this machine. Nobody is interested to read the manual. And that manual is telling this. You need to operate this machine carefully. Okay? If you don't know, if you don't learn how to operate this machine, you will suffer. Endlessly you will suffer. The Upanishad says, Kuruvannevehe karmani jijivishechatagum samaha. Evam tvai nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. Ishavasya Upanishad. Every one of us desires to live for 100 years. And the Upanishad says, you desire to live for 100 years only if you have the will and intention to engage in good actions. Good action means spiritual sadhana, spiritual practice. If you don't have such a will, if you don't have such a desire, don't even desire to live for 100 years, the Upanishad says. Evam tvai nanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. If you don't want to get entangled by karma, action, if you don't want to get tainted by action, okay, you should have this desire to engage in good action, to enjoy in spiritual practices. Otherwise, don't desire to live 100 years. 100 years, longer the life means longer the bondage, greater the bondage. You will accumulate more of bad karma because you are not even rightly resolved. What is the ultimate purpose of life? What is the best way to use this instrument? If you have not understood that, you have not figured out that, and then your actions will be unconscious naturally. You will be just following your karma, you will just following your tendencies. They are both good and bad tendencies. And bad also will manifest through you. Bad action will proceed. That action actually will put you in bondage again. And again, human birth or subhuman species birth, inferior wombs will be born and then suffering continues. So if you desire to live 100 years, first ensure that you have the will to engage in good actions. What is a good action? As Swamiji beautifully puts it, any action that takes you towards truth or God is a good action. And any action that takes you away from truth or God is a bad action. So this much of discrimination we all have. And the action that I am engaged in, will it take me towards the truth or not? We can reflect and we can adjust the action accordingly, and slowly we can progress on the spiritual path. So this spiritual knowledge is the highest knowledge. I think Saint Augustine, who said, Saint Augustine, the body dies when soul departs, and the soul dies when God departs, he said. When God goes away from our life, spirituality goes away from our life, the desire to seek the truth goes away from our life. We are just after material pursuits. The soul is as good as dead, he said. Soul cannot be killed, consciousness immortal. Upanishad also says the same thing. Asuriya namate loka andhena tamasavrtaha tagumste pretya vigachanti ekecha atma hanujanaha. Though Atman cannot be killed, Upanishad is talking about Atman being killed, Atma hanujanaha, those who kill their own self. Because they have not figured out the purpose of life. Asuriya namate loka, they will enter into dark spheres, dark realms. Andhena tamasavrtaha, where actually they will have to dwell in ignorance. For example, an animal, complete ignorance. It can't uplift itself. There is no scope there in that birth. The body has to go and it has to evolve into human birth, and then only actually thinking and reflection starts. So when God goes away from our lives, spirituality goes away from our lives, it's a blind life. So body dies when soul goes, and the soul dies when God goes away from our life. Everybody can seek the truth according to his or her own capacity. 15-20 minutes of time for spiritual sadhana, for meditation and prayer. Not many people take off even that much of time to investigate into the nature of this life. Not that they don't have time. Will is not there. Desire is not there. Intention is not there. You have not got 15-20 minutes for God. Can't you give 15-20 minutes for your higher self? For yourself in truth. No, you just see the world. Not interested. What kind of life it is? Then suffering comes to you sooner or later. as the best of the piece of creation, we alone have the capacity to investigate into the nature of the Creator and our connection with the Creator. And who has done this universe, and what is my relationship with that Creator of the universe? And how can I know or reach him or her or it? We can put these questions, and some investigation can be done, some inquiry can be done. We may not realize the absolute in this birth itself, but we can take a few steps in that direction. That much we all can do, and then our life becomes a blessed life. As Sri Ramakrishna says, if you walk one step towards the Lord in this Kali Yuga, He will walk 10 steps towards you. Is He ever ready to help us? Or are we interested? Do we want to be helped? That's the question. Who are we? We need to understand. You know, when Sri Ramakrishna was suffering this cancer, many of his disciples and devotees requested him, see, all these days you have been praying to Mother Kali, and she is your mother. And it is not difficult for you to cure this disease by yourself. You just pray and invoke the blessings of that mother, ask that mother to cure you of this disease. Sri Ramakrishna was hesitant initially, but they went on pestering him. Why don't you ask Divine Mother? Why don't you ask Divine Mother? She has been so gracious to you. She considers you as her child and has bestowed all that wisdom that you have. So, as they have been pestering again and again, and Sri Ramakrishna went and asked Mother, then the mother said, Mother, I am not even able to eat even little food. Please help me. Then Mother told him, actually, are you not eating through other mouths, all other mouths? And Ramakrishna felt shy for having asked Mother this desire. Okay? He said, then never ever I would ask like this. No. What is that if this body goes? All bodies, I am the only there. If that eating is important, I can eat through all these bodies are mine. That's what actually experience of the truth is. Now he is enlightened being, so he is everywhere there. All beings are his, in fact. He is there in all beings. What if one body goes? That eating is important, I am eating through all these bodies, physical bodies. Life is in a continuum in that way. Life exists. So that is actually spiritual realization. Sri Ramakrishna was hesitant because of this only. But they forced him to ask that of Mother. He had asked, and then Mother replied like this. What, my child, if this body goes? And never thereafter he had asked Divine Mother to cure him of this disease. At the end of Leela, the mission has been accomplished, and now he has to quit. The body's purpose is over. Now he prepared his mind to quit the world joyfully. Of course, that suffering is only for people who watched him from outside. Because he already withdrew the mind from body. Whatever that happens to body, it doesn't really make the individual suffer. You know, one day he was on the bed, suddenly he gets up from the cot and, goes near that date palm tree, and asks a black cobra, go away from you, from here, and then comes back and sleeps on the cot. And Holy Mother Sarada Devi was surprised to see this. How come he could get up like this? He pretends as if he can't even get up, and everything has to be supplied to him on the bed. Suddenly he gets up and darted like an arrow towards the tree. And then Sri Ramakrishna requested, don't tell anybody. That means what? He is consciousness. He can, if he wants to use this instrument, he can use it in any way. But he has decided to put an end to this life. A yogi who becomes perfect, if he wants to use this instrument, he can use the instrument for any length of time, in fact. And many yogis like that. Trailinga Swami lived for 300 years, they say. But they don't prefer to keep. Most of the sages, they don't prefer to keep. Because once you get to consciousness, once you get that experience, From that perspective, from that high vantage point, when you look at the body and the mind, you find the present existence is very despicable and low. And so they don't prefer to keep this physical embodiment. Now I am experiencing my infinite nature. Why should I hold on to this limited, truncated existence? Joyfully they quit the world. They quit the body and mind. They will see this too as actually inferior modifications. In fact, body is parama mangala, most inauspicious. You need to have a little vairagya. Vedanta talks about vairagya all the time. You reflect on the nature of the physical body, with what material it is made up of, blood, bones, what? Sweat. What auspiciousness is there in this material, you just tell me? The mind, you reflect on it. What kind of thought exists there, we all know. Khalil Gibran's story is there. One philosopher went to an ordinary person. What he was doing, he was cleaning the floor with a broomstick. The philosopher asked him actually, what you do for your living? Can't you see? I just do this, chores, and I make a living. Oh, sweeping the floor? Then the philosopher said, very menial work. And the sweeper asked him, sir, what do you do for a living? He said, I am a philosopher. Philosopher. So I don't understand. So what do you do? I study others' minds, he said. Oh, sweeper said, that is a dirtier job, sir. The idea is, we all know what thoughts we have, right? Looking into the mind of the other person, we also don't want to look into our own minds. Why others will look into our mind? What you will get there? You will find it disgusting, right? Totally disgusting. So this is mind. The body is made up of inauspicious material, and the mind, we know what quality thought we have today particularly. It's mostly negative and thought pertaining to sensory life, basically. So why they would possess these two? Parama Mangala, most inauspicious is the physical body, inauspicious is mind. And compare these two with the soul or consciousness, God, Parama Mangala, most auspicious. No comparison. A huge difference. And so the sages, after attaining enlightenment, would most joyfully quit the body and mind. These two covers they remove. But because we have not experienced the truth, we have not experienced consciousness, when we understand we mean only the physical body, we are so fearful. We want to hold on to it. Very dearly we hold on to this body. So it's very important to investigate into the real nature of being. Khalil Gibran said, only once I have been made mute in my life. That was when somebody asked me, who are you? Only once I have been made mute in my life. I was an enlightened being. That was when somebody asked me, who are you? Because the individual had asked a very foolish question. For he means what? You and I are one. You and I are one. Our parents have given us the names. That name plays so much of mischief. I tell this again and again, but I'm still telling again. The spiritual matters have to be rediscussed, have to be repeated again and again. Then only they get, rooted in our minds. Suppose our parents have not given us any name. None of us have any name. You don't have any name, I don't have any name. Been brought up like that. Then who is listening to whom? Who is watching whom? Without telling the name. Let us say your name is Ramesh. Now I look at Ramesh and Ramesh looks at Shithikantananda, you can say. doesn't have any name, I don't have a name. You just tell me without using the name who looks at whom, who listens to whom. The only one is looking at. Don't be afraid. Right? I know this also causes fear for some people. But still looking is happening and listening is happening, hearing is happening, right? It is only the one. So even if you just want to see the difference, only the external, physical body, there is a differentiation in the world. No two physical bodies are alike. And no two minds are also alike, naturally. Because body is only the gross expression of the mind. But our philosophy says these two are jada, insentient. They are just upadhis, the instruments for consciousness. Only the differentiation is only in the insentient. But that is unreal because it is insentient and impermanent. That's why it's unreal. The difference is only with regard to the unreal in us. But the reality in you is also the reality in me. The reality in me is also the reality in you. So it is one truth that is finding expression through all the forms, through all the beings. And how can you put a question like, who are you? That means you don't know who you are first. That's why you ask that question. That's why that philosopher said, only once I have become mute. Where the individual doesn't know who he is. He and me are one and the same. How can you put that question, who are you? So that is the most foolish question. And the greatest question is the question of Ramana Maharshi, who am I? Investigating into one's own real being. All pain disappears once the I disappears. This I is only a fictitious thing. Once this lower I disappears, the higher I, the cosmic I, the divine I, the cosmic being enters into a being. And you experience it as the infinite. So, it is very important to have this spiritual knowledge. This spiritual knowledge is a real knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Raja Vidya is the king of all sciences, he says. The best of the sciences, the best of the knowledge that helps you, takes you beyond all kinds of suffering for good. This alone is real knowledge. All other things that we learn through our education is only for the sake of livelihood. We all know that, right? It helps us to get a job, to make some money. Right. It's okay. It's also important. But that is not the ultimate knowledge. But today people conduct themselves in such a way as if they possess the absolute with them. No. You should have some humility. What you know is very little. You have stuffed some secular knowledge into your brain, information rather, that's also not knowledge. It's not processed well. That's why so much of suffering. It helps you to get a job, you make some money, it's okay. But we should know that I have not had the right knowledge yet. That's why there is suffering in my life. And then the longing will arise. Let me have the highest knowledge. Then you come to scriptures. Then you come to spiritual talks. Then you listen to them again and again. Intellectual clarity comes. And then afterwards you plunge into sadhana. And if you really do sadhana well, God's grace will come upon you and you will experience the truth. Then the end of samsara. You have put a full stop to the cycle and you have become a hero. As Sri Ramakrishna sings in that beautiful song. Then Divine Mother claps. Okay, the Absolute, the creator of this universe, she claps. So here is a hero who could escape my trap. The universe is my trap. There cannot be a better compliment than that. Definitely. The trap is a formidable trap, but there is an exit. There is a way out. Try to find it out. That's what our scriptures say. And prove yourself a hero. And who will compliment you? The creator of the universe will compliment you. Yes. I have designed the trap in such a way no ordinary mortal can escape. But here is a genius. Here is a hero, a real hero. Escaped from my clutches, escaped from my maya. God actually is not that cruel, not that actually He has not provided exit and then asks us actually to suffer helplessly in this world. He has provided the exit, but we need to have that sukshma buddhi, that subtle intellect, to see the exit and the courage to come out of that exit. And that comes, that's why dispassion, minimal living, is encouraged here. Renunciation is encouraged here, because so that you will have time to investigate into your real nature, to cultivate the intellect, to cultivate the spirit. So the spiritual knowledge is the real knowledge and the highest knowledge. One lady went to Ramana Maharshi and asked Maharshi, Maharshi, please give me enlightenment. I want only enlightenment. I want only mukti. And he did not speak. Mostly at the times he would answer only through silence. After she left the place, he just laughed and told other disciples around him, she wants me to give mukti. Have I bundled the mukti and kept with me, and that it can be given as an object if somebody asks? Is what Maharshi said. Mukti is already in you. Not that I accumulate here as an object and I will give it to you. You are already in mukti. God is dwelling in you. You must seek. I must become enlightened. I must become free. I must attain mukti. You need to drop that ego sense on your own. How can I do this for you? I can do it for myself. You have to do it for yourself. It is not an object that can be given like this. The seeking must come from you. And that comes through discrimination. This is why in Vedanta the word discrimination is a very powerful word. Through discrimination, dispassion comes automatically. If we reflect on the nature of our existence deeply, then discrimination. Then dispassion comes through discrimination. And through dispassion, enlightenment will happen. So that is true knowledge. Knowledge of the Brahman alone is true knowledge. The knowledge that we gain through our books, through our education system, is a partial knowledge. Yes, some idea, some understanding about the universe, but it doesn't really help us to come out of all kinds of suffering. The great sage Ashtavakra, the Ashtavakra Samhita, a book on Advaita text. Ashtavakra once went to Janaka's court. Janaka's court was famous for spiritual debates and discussions. Illumined sages, great scholars, they all would gather in that court and would talk about Brahman. King's court. Always they would talk about Brahman, ultimate knowledge, about God, truth. So one day he went there. The gods announced his arrival to the king. Then Janaka said, yes, let him come. So when he entered the court, because it was a disfigured body, Ashtavakra, 8 places in the body, that was not a fully formed body, not a beautiful form outwardly. So all the people who were in the court, most of them almost, except Janaka, everybody had laughed. Because the form was so, what you call, awkward outwardly. So then Ashtavakra saw this, and afterwards he started laughing aloud. That surprised Janaka. Sage, I understand why my courtiers laughed at you, because your form actually would make anybody laugh. He did not laugh, Janaka. But why did you laugh? Then Ashtavakra said, O king, I had great expectations on your court and the people who would assemble here. And I thought they would be able to look into the inward me, the real personality in me, the real being in me. But they could only look at my exterior. So that's why I felt like laughing. They were not as knowledgeable as they project themselves to be. So The reality of the personality is not the physical or the psychological. Beyond what lies the physical and the psychological is the truth. And it's very close to us. The beauty of Sanatana Dharma is, again and again our scriptures say that God is so close to you. And before the ego comes before the I, it is that consciousness which shines through the I, which makes the I shine, which reflects through the I. The mind is only a poor reflector of that infinite consciousness. Because it is subtle matter, it reflects a little of the consciousness. An infinitesimal fraction of consciousness it reflects. But it has no original existence. It is insentient. It is not self-resplendent. It is not self-luminous. It draws and derives its existence, sustenance, and nourishment only from consciousness, only from soul, only from self, only from God. So what this I has to say, has to do, it has to constantly meditate on the consciousness, its source, its father, its mother, its originator. Otherwise, it's an ungrateful mind, ungrateful existence. You don't even look at your maker, originator, the source, the support, adhisthana. You know, it's like a priest in the temple. We appoint a priest in the temple, what he has to do? Because he has to worship the Lord. But the priest is not interested in worshipping the Lord, always is interested in things that devotees would bring. What things they would bring to the temple. Always is interested in that. Is he not an ungrateful priest? This mind or ego is also an ungrateful priest. It doesn't worship the soul or consciousness, its source. Rather, it's interested in these objects of the senses. The things outside. What I can gain from this so and sense object, that sensory object. Mind is always an ungrateful priest. Please ensure that actually it does its job properly. We will dismiss the pujari, right, priest, if it doesn't do worship properly. The pujari should be like Sri Ramakrishna kind of pujari. How did he worship Divine Mother? Most of our priests are not like that, unfortunately. If you are owner of the temple, if you are dharmakarta, you will dismiss this pujari. So you have to dismiss this mind and ego because it's an ungrateful priest. Please ensure that actually it worships the Lord, for which actually it is kept there, for which actually it is created. So let us stop here for today. We shall meditate for 2 minutes before we do.
Om.